This is the Powered AF Podcast, a show about visionaries, high performers, and entrepreneurs, and their stories on how they push past fear, overcome imposter syndrome, and navigate through the mental roadblocks in order to achieve the highest level of success. And I'm your host, Abu Fofana. So I'm currently scrolling through social media and I get tagged by one of my guys, George. And if you don't know, I'll tag him below in the show notes description. But George is a finance savant and, just really good with numbers, investments, etc. So he tags me on this thread, and this thread is with Andrew. And Andrew, if you all don't know, runs this business called acquired.com. So it's basically an online platform where you could go and buy and sell businesses. So Andrew's posting this thread and George tags me on it and he wants to know my opinion. So here's what the topic's about and here's what it is. So Andrew is saying the best marketers should be running startups, not marketing agencies. He said, put it another way, start an agency to learn and invest profits to build a product, ideally bootstrap the startup to get to acquired.com, then do whatever you want, swing bigger or lay on the beach. Marketers and storytellers rule the world. And essentially what he's saying is, hey, if you're a marketer, right, you should be running a startup. You shouldn't be running a marketing agency. And this is really interesting because I know a lot of marketers, a lot of people that are creative, that are really great at marketing and storytelling that are running agencies and are not running businesses. And so I have some thoughts to this because I used to run an agency myself and I used to also run businesses as well. So the answer isn't as simple as, yes, that's absolutely correct, because there's some nuances involved in this. So let me give you the thought process of a marketer. Someone who's a marketer, who's running a marketing agency, they're so passionate about creating messaging, creating branding assets in order to convey that company that they're working with value. They're trying to translate the value, and the only way you translate the value is by turning likes, subscribers, traffic into sales, right? That's our goal, right? As a marketer, that's all we're thinking about. Now, when you take that marketer and you start adding additional tasks to their plate, and you say, okay, but you also have to manage a team. Okay, you also have to manage the process. Okay, you also have to handle the SOPs. Okay, you also have to create the business infrastructure. Okay, you also have to do, this is when you take the marketer out of its element. And now the marketer actually can't do what they're supposed to do, right? Or what their zone of genius is, meaning that market, right? So you're taking a marketer and you're telling them, hey, you should just build a startup because you could apply those same skills. Yes and no. To a certain extent, you could apply those same skills. Often, it really doesn't translate one-to-one because you have to create the space and time for you to actually do what you're good at, which is marketing. But if you can't get to that space and all you're doing is managing the other stuff, then that makes it really, really difficult. Trust me, I know as someone who used to run a marketing agency. And when you start building a marketing agency, when it's just you could focus a lot on the marketing. The systems and processes, that's all in your head. You don't really document it because there's no one else to hand that and pass that over to. You think as a solo marketer that, okay, this is as good as it's going to get. But then you want to make more money. And the only way to make more money is to bring on people. And when you bring on people, it's a skill set that you haven't acquired yet. And so now you're managing people. Now you're creating SOPs, you're doing things that are taking you further away from the thing that you're really, really good at. And eventually you have to make a choice. And this is what happened to me. It was me, myself, and I had 36 clients. And I didn't want to manage people. So I came to a point where I was working over 100 hours a week. And I had to make a decision on, am I going to continue running this agency or am I going to sunset? And I wanted to make more money, so I kept taking on more clients. But there's a point where it's not worth it when it's just you. And if you want to keep your margins, and if you hire more people, your margins start to decrease. And so I had to make this tough decision and saying, okay, I need to either increase my price by a lot and take on less clients, or if I increase my price by a lot, I take on people I could hire and still keep a healthy margin, but now I'm managing people. Or I need to figure out a different way to utilize my skill set in the marketing space. And so this allowed me to really push over and start a digital product online course business where I would package my skill set and sell it to the masses. And so I do believe, and again, I know where Andrew is going. And I appreciate George for tagging me on this because this is the dilemma. Not every marketer who runs a marketing agency would be good at building a startup. The skill sets they're just different, right? Now, if you take a marketer and you put them inside an already business, right? A business that's running well, then you can have more success because again, you keep that marketer as a marketer. Now, with all that said, there are marketers that are very unique that can and will be more successful building a startup than only being a marketer. A good example of this that I like to think about is the Ryan Reynolds, who is the actor, and his real superpower, I believe, if he was, he's a creative and I think he's a genius marketer, but his real superpower was him identifying, okay, if the only thing I did was acting and I'm making a lot of money acting, but if I felt like this was the only thing I was supposed to do, he would have missed out on the opportunities to accelerate and to grow the other businesses he bought into. And what did those other businesses have? They had operators, they had strong operators. So if you're a great marketer, my advice for you would be to find a strong operator. If you could find a strong operator, then you could just focus on your zone of genius. It doesn't mean you can't also operate and do the other things and be in on the big conversations or when things need to happen. It's just that you have a strong enough people where you don't have to be on every conversation, every deal, right? Every acquisition. You don't have to do everything, and you could operate in your zone of genius and jump around different back and forth. But it really is solely dependent on having great operators. And this is, again, another really example, the Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, yes, was he, forward thinker, but I think his superpower was marketing because there had been phones. The market was already saturated, as people say, but he was really great at marketing. He's really great at conveying the value of the product. And he got with good operators and also technical founders, right, in order to grow and scale the business. So I believe if you're a really great marketer, that you should get with a strong operator to build a business, to build a startup from scratch, or start acquiring businesses and offering your service, whether it's for equity percentage or, buy-in into the company and go from there. So that's what I would say to that thread that I was tagged on by my boy George. So thank you for tagging me. So it allows me to give my perspective on just, the best marketers should be running startups, not marketing agencies. So again, yes and no. I gave some of my pros and cons, but tell me, what do you think? Should the best marketers be running startups instead of agencies?
Thank you for joining us at the Powered AF podcast. Make sure to visit our website and make sure to follow our podcast anywhere you listen to the podcast to make sure you never miss a show. And please, 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 if you enjoyed this episode and this show, please make sure to leave us a review. It really, really does help. And last thing, if you're interested in this freebie that I just released, I want you to check this out. Recently, I put together a free online training on how to 10x your sales online. This is for business owners who are struggling with making consistent sales online. Whether you run a product or service-based business, this is the perfect training for you. The free training is still up, and you can access it by going to poweryourlaunch.com/pod. Again, poweryourlaunch.com/pod. That's POD. All right. Thanks again for listening in. I'll see you during our next show.